Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the More YouTube channel. It's Chris back with my rant stroke thought of the day. Not about Newcastle United, this one. No, it's about another team called United, Manchester United. And the big story that's dominating football right now, which I'm sure every single one of you is aware about, unless you live under a rock or from a different planet. So this is about Manchester United looking like, seemingly like they're laying the groundwork for the return of Mason Greenwood. Now, if you don't know, again, if you have been under said rock or different planet, Mason Greenwood has not played for Manchester United since last year, where he was arrested by the police following evidence that was put on social media of an alleged offence. I have to use that word, alleged offence, involving him and his then partner. We all saw it, graphic images and very disturbing sound clips, which was implying that an offence had allegedly been committed, potentially by Mason Greenwood. And off the back of that, obviously the police were called to action. They arrested him. And then he was suspended subsequently from by Manchester United for a long period of time. So Manchester United have been sitting on this for months, really, and I don't think they've handled this very well. That this is the kind of action that I'm going to, or the viewpoint I'm kind of going to come at this from, but because, quite honest with you, we can't really, go full in on this because, from a legal point of view as well. It's very important that we say this as well, that as of February this year, all charges against Mason Greenwood were dropped for the said alleged offence. So Mason Greenwood never went to court, and he was never found guilty. Also never found not guilty either, it must be said. And the only evidence of innocence really is the fact that the charges were dropped by his alleged victim, who is his partner. So that's the situation there in terms of covering ROS of anything legally or liabilistic. When it comes to this very delicate situation, but that may have happened did happen. That it wasn't taken to court, but in the public court, I think a lot of people judge Mason Greenwood from what they saw and what they heard. We saw it, we heard it. We can't erase it. We can't take it out of our minds. It was very disturbing, and I think I'm not a Manchester United fan. I've got no skin in the game. I'm a Newcastle fan, but had the shoe been on the other foot and that had been one of our players, I would have been very, very disturbed by it. And I don't think I personally would be able to get behind that player again if he was to be reintroduced to the squad, no matter his level of ability. But we'll get stuck into that a little bit more in a second. So this situation has been accelerated, really. This is back in the media because a piece has come through The Athletic by Adam Crafton, which is basically just kind of almost laid the roadmap out of Manchester United's planned return behind the scenes for Mason Greenwood. So apparently, in the piece, this is it, in the piece it's been leaked out there in the media again, which is where it's really poor by Manchester United. You plug these gaps, certainly for something as delicate as this, that the planned return was supposed to be early August, that the player was going to be reintroduced into the squad. The footballing operations side were okay with it. That includes Erik ten Hag, which is not really a good look for you, Erik ten Hag. I'll come back on that in a minute. So the footballing side of it was okay, but it didn't happen. Even though Greenwood was going to be reintroduced to the squad, he was not going to be involved in any of the foundation activities as a player. So make of that what you will. A lot of people have already. I've seen some very on the money opinions on that. I'm not going to share mine, but I'm kind of on the side of them with this one. But it was delayed, and in the piece, it's been leaked out that the reason for the delay was consultation with sponsors, which I get. Football is a business, a very commercial business, and sponsors are a huge part of football, certainly for massive clubs like Manchester United. It's arguably one of the biggest clubs in the world in terms of corporate sponsorship deals. So something like this, of course, you need to speak to the sponsors on it. They also talked about consulting former players, probably club ambassadors. You can imagine potentially, again, I don't know this, but it could be the class of 92 type characters. And then also the senior figures from the Manchester United ladies team or women's team as well. Now, this is where it all falls down a bit. So the leaks came out that there was a delay on this, and potentially people were putting two and two together, maybe making six, and saying that because the Manchester United women's players who are currently on duty with the Lionesses, who just got the final of the World Cup, congratulations to them. But this isn't about the Lionesses, this is about this situation. They were then subjected to quite frankly vile and toxic abuse on social media, to the point where some of their people had to look at getting cybersecurity and to stop this from happening. And now this is the problem with a situation like this. It brings all the fucking awful fuckwit arseholes out of the woodwork, the scabby little caves that they hide in, the putrid places that they thrive, and they just live in their horrible toxic shit. They all come out of the woodwork with stuff like this, and they attack people who have nothing to do with this situation, and it's vile. It's absolutely vile. And I would tell anyone, Newcastle fan or not, don't get involved in that at all. It's disgusting. Don't do that. You're better than that. Don't be like that. So the fact that the female players were thrown into the bus wheels by the club is awful. Again, by Richard Arnold, he needs to have a good look at himself as to how he's handled that and how he's handled leaks coming out of his club. So that's a situation there that they need to address. They came out with a statement off the back of the Athletic piece, which I'll read to you. And again, some prominent Manchester United fan media have responded to this, and I think they've responded very well. And I'll be getting a bit of stick being a rival fan base, but I think their stance on this and their rhetoric around this has been pretty superb so far. So I think it tells you what the real Manchester United fans think about this. So this is Manchester United's statement, bear with me. So following the dropping of all charges against Mason Greenwood in February 2023, Manchester United has conducted a thorough investigation of allegations made against him. This has drawn on extensive evidence and context not in the public domain, and we have heard from numerous people with direct involvement or knowledge of the case. Throughout this process, the welfare and perspective of the alleged victim has been central to the club's inquiries, and we respect her right to lifelong anonymity. We also have responsibilities to Mason as an employee, as a young person who has been with the club since the age of 7, and as a new father with a partner. The fact-finding phase of our investigation is now complete, and we are in the final stages of making a decision on Mason's future. Contrary to media speculation, the decision has not yet been made and is currently the subject of intense internal deliberation. Responsibility ultimately rests with the Chief Executive Officer, Richard Arnold. Once made, the decision will be communicated and explained to the club's internal and external stakeholders. This has been a difficult case for everyone associated with Manchester United, and we understand the strong opinions it has provoked based on the partial evidence in the public domain. We ask for patience as we work through the final stages of this carefully considered process. So that is a bit of a nothing statement really by Manchester United, and it's all in response to the Athletic piece. Now, a couple of key bits out of that. I think the anonymity of the alleged victim is important. I think that's very important. I don't think anybody should be going after her at all. I know they did when it first happened. I saw some vile tweets in response to the initial evidence that went out there. Just discussed. I'm not even going to repeat them. They're that bad. But then they're talking about the responsibility to Mason Greenwood as a young player who's been there since the age of 7 and everything else. Now, if this happened in every other day walk of life, just take a little step away from football for a minute. If you or I had this evidence presented against us in the public domain, we'd have been sacked instantly, gone like that. Maybe 3-month pay in your pocket, but you'd be gone, and then it would follow you everywhere. And football lives in a different world than us. It lives in a different world financially, and also it looks like it lives in a different world moralistically as well. And as I said, it's important to say that the charges were dropped. We'll always put that in there just to be safe. But football is a little bit like the Matrix. The red or the blue pill, whichever one you've taken. That this situation potentially can cause a real dangerous ripple effect to the world of football in terms of accountability for actions or alleged actions, and that is a real concern. Now, Manchester United talking about the responsibility to Mason Greenwood as a player, but I think they've completely negated the responsibility to the supporters and how they feel about the situation. And again, I've seen some really, I think, well articulated points of view from some mainstream Manchester United podcasters and YouTubers, and I think it very much speaks to the tone of what the footballing world is feeling right now about this potential return. But Manchester United have a responsibility to their supporters, not just their female supporters. I mean, in the main, I think that this potential return will really upset the female supporters. I think maybe a lot more than it would do the male supporters. But I think the male supporters will equally be as upset. I'm a father of 2 daughters. And, again, as I said, if it was a Newcastle player, I would find it very hard to get behind that player. who comes on the pitch, and even if they score a goal, I find it really hard to celebrate that goal, given some of my doubts about that character potentially. And I think that's something that Manchester United have completely and utterly ignored in this situation. It's a very cold corporate statement in response to an article that's come out, obviously laying out the details as to what potentially is going to happen about Mason Greenwood's return. Now, subsequently from that, more things have rolled out into the social media again, from leaks and from people commenting on a very, very delicate situation. Apparently there's a lot of people really disturbed and really concerned about how this has been handled in and amongst the club, who work within the club. The sponsors have been very acute, I think, in their statements about this, that they're saying that it's not their responsibility, and they can't be held accountable for any actions of any players. They would refer you back to Manchester United. I think a couple of the sponsors have already came out with official statements, Adidas being one, about this situation. So they're very much giving themselves that safe distance point if they want to make a decision about this. Now, you have to wonder, again, it's very delicate, this situation, but are Manchester United putting this out there to test the water to see what the reaction is? And if the reaction is, visceral, are they going to change the way they do things about this? Are they going to do something about Mason Greenwood? I think that ship has really sailed for them. I think they should, if they were going to do something about it, the opportunity to do something about it was a long time ago. And I think they, as a club, they have let down their supporters around the world. And I think they've actually let down football. They've let down the footballing community, I think, because, again, as I say, there is no charge currently hanging over Mason Greenwood's head, but from a legal point of view, but it's the defamation by accusation, I suppose. When something's out there in the world, you can't take it back, and opinions are drawn of it, as I said earlier on, and people have got their opinions of that player, and fans might vote with their feet. Football clubs in general, not just Manchester United, all of them, they ask a lot of us as supporters. They ask a lot of us financially, with the cost outlay on tickets, logistically with the travelling that we have to do for games that we arrange for Sky and move to fucking Sunday at 8 o'clock or whatever. But now Manchester United fans in particular are asking a lot of their fan base moralistically to potentially welcome back an individual who, in your eyes, may not be fit to wear that shirt, from a moralistic point of view, from a lack of integrity, character, class, whatever you want to call it. As a fan, you may never accept that individual as a player. You may never cheer them again, and some of you might do. Now that's on you. You have to make that decision and live by that decision. That's entirely up to you. But I think for me as a football fan and as a Newcastle fan, I think if one of our players had been accused of this, I don't think I could accept them back on the pitch. I really don't. I don't think I could cheer for them. I don't think I'd be happy with it. And I think from a sponsorship point of view, I think it would be commercial suicide. I think a lot of sponsors would run a mile because they don't want to be associated with even the accusation, the thought that a player could be responsible for something like he was accused of being responsible for. So from a commercial point of view, I think Manchester United have completely fucked this up, and from a moralistic and emotional point of view, the connection with their supporters, equally, I think they've completely and utterly fucked this up. I really do. A penny for the thought of female Manchester United fans and players of the Manchester United women's team right now, if Mason Greenwood is indeed welcomed back into the fold. And going back to Ten Hag, as I said, Ten Hag won a lot of credit and a lot of praise for the way he handled the Ronaldo situation, about being a strong character and having values. And he didn't like the way Ronaldo disrespected Manchester United. Now, all of that credibility, if Eric Ten Hag is happy for Mason Greenwood to be welcomed back into the fold, all of that credibility could be eroded away in an instant with that decision. I know I've made some jokes about Ten Hag, about being a worm with a goat, all that kind of stuff and everything else, but he seems a very good football manager, and he, on the surface, seems a man of principle. Now, if he's happy for a player to be welcomed back into the fold with this alleged accusation out there in the world, you have to start questioning Eric Ten Hag's moral integrity and his compass as well. And that's just facts. People will do that. This is a world of opinions. We're all entitled to them. They're like arseholes. We've all got them. We're entitled to opinions. Factually, you can't prove something, and from a legal standpoint, you can't talk about something that somebody really isn't accused of in a factual sense, as I said, because there's no charges currently hanging over Mason Greenwood's head. But You have an opinion of what you saw that went out there, and that is your opinion to take and store in there, and nobody can change your opinion on that, whether you're a Manchester United fan or not. And I think that's something that Manchester United completely and utterly ignored in this situation, and have made a real arse of this. And you know, I think it's disappointing for a club of that magnitude. You know, we've seen other clubs handle situations. Granted, it was a bit different, but we've seen, you know, Everton handle a situation with a former player who was obviously accused of an offence. I think, I don't know if they've been convicted or not. Didn't follow the story too much. But Manchester City, obviously, recently with their situation where their player was actually found not guilty in a court of law, and they still dispense with that player's services. So other clubs have set a standard here of how to handle this situation. And just finishing on this, just one last point on this. The cynic in me would be forgiven in thinking this, and I think everybody's the same. If Mason Greenwood was a shit player, let's be honest, if he was a bang average academy player, would the club be making anywhere near of an effort like this to reinstate him into the fold? And the answer to that really is no. Would the fuck? They wouldn't be interested at all. If he was a shit bang average player, the Robbie Savage of 2023, they wouldn't be interested at all. He would have been sacked way before now, and they'd have moved on and probably bought that player's replacement in through the door. It's only because of Mason Greenwood's ability as a footballer this decision is potentially being made, and that something about that makes me feel very uneasy. And I think the precedent that it could potentially set for the stars of tomorrow in their academy as well is a very dark and dangerous tone that potentially there is no ownership really. That you don't have to answer for you know, things that you maybe do, you know, or alleged to have done. And it is a real worry. It is a real worry for the future, not just of footballers but society. You know, if people think that because you're really good at something that, you know, they can make it all go away, that's that is a real concern. It really is, and yeah, it makes me feel uncomfortable. But we just wanted to come on and say our piece about the situation. And yeah, I don't envy Manchester United fans at the moment. Like I say, we have a bit of ribbon with them as a rival fan base. But for me, and you're asking a lot of them right now, and you know, my sympathies do go out to them. You know, and I think it's going to be very difficult few months for them with the looks like the potential reintroduction of Mason Greenwood to the fold, and again the reaction from the other stadiums will be vitriolic. The abuse that'll be thrown at them. I think there was already chance at the Wolves game, which they were lucky to win, by the way. But there was already chance at the Wolves game. It's not my style. If I'm the terrorists, I'm not doing that. You know, I don't sink that low, but football fans will, and it won't be off the table. And I think that dark cloud of energy will surround that club. You know, from a rival, I suppose. You know, it's you know, from that point of view, Manchester United season falling over is great for a Newcastle point of view. But I think the nature of the toxicity around the club that could throw it off its axes, I think, isn't great at all. It's not good for football. It's not good for society either. So yeah, handled this really badly, Manchester United, in my opinion. And I think you could do a lot better. They could have done a lot better than what they've done with it. But that's all I've got to say about this. If this is the kind of thing you like, guys, please consider subscribing, smash that button. We're approaching close to 5k subs now, so we're getting to that milestone, which is awesome. We generally do Newcastle content, but when a big story like this comes out and we feel opinions should be out there, we will give it, and hopefully that we've done that in a safe and legal way with this video. And yeah, leave us a comment, guys. Let us know what you think about the situation as well. And you know, we always try and engage with you as best we can. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. See you later.